As usual, let us start our Dhamma talk by saying Namo Tassa 3 times. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. The title of today's Dhamma talk is Resistance to Oppressor. To understand this discourse, the following aphorisms should be committed to memory beforehand. 1. One must verily search for the cause of suffering. 2. Then one finds the craving or tanha as the main cause. 3. One has to act promptly at the craving's command. And number 4. Repeated actions accumulate suffering. 5. Suffering means these aggregates. 6. Apart from these aggregates, there is no other suffering. 7. For the extinction of suffering, one must abandon craving. 8. The way to abandon craving is dasipa, meaning dana or generosity, sila or morality, and bhavana or meditation. Now let us study a little more detail about these aphorisms. According to these above aphorisms just now mentioned, 1. All the living beings are tormented by both physical and mental sufferings. It is necessary to find for the true cause of suffering. Suffering cannot be extinguished by removing the wrong cause. For example, if someone throws a stone and hits a dog, it should react to the person and not the stone to escape further attacks, as the person is the main source of harm. Similarly, one can only be free from suffering by seeking out the main cause and remove it, to seek for the cause. Then number 2. The second aphorism is pointing craving as the main cause. The cause of suffering is none other than the desire, wanting and craving, and Pali we call tanha. Impelled by this craving, the beings are relentlessly hankering after sensual objects. They grasp and cling to the things when they get those objects. By fair or foul means, they try to satiate their desire, just like a centipede, endlessly crawling round and round on a ring of braided straw. Beings are ceaselessly tormented by the vicious circle of wanting, then getting, and then dissolving. The number 3 and 4, the third and fourth aphorisms show this plight. Further, it is necessary to know what dukkha, commonly translated as suffering, actually it is unsatisfactoriness, is. Dukkha means one's khanda, meaning this aggregate, which we grasp as our own body. The Pali word khanda denotes aggregates. It is group of corporeality or rupa or material phenomena, simply. Feeling or sensations, vedana. Sanya or perception. Sankhara or mental formations. And consciousness of vijnana. When classified into categories, it just becomes two, Rupa and Nama, matter and the mind. The number 5. These ultimate realities are marked by 3 signs. Upada, Paliwa Upada means arising, Thiti, the static phase, and Bhanga, the solution phase. These are universal characteristics of all psychophysical phenomena, the mind and the body. So all these psychophysical phenomena conditioned by craving or tanha, being ceaselessly tormented by arising and dissolution, is the true cause of suffering. Painful suffering due to injury is panyati or conceptual dukkha. Just the knowledge of conceptual dukkha will not lead one to anatta, that is egolessness, characteristics. Only apprehension of paramattha dukkha, meaning the true suffering, will enable one to penetrate the anatta or egolessness characteristics, culminating in the attainment of noble path knowledge. 6. Now let us study the episode, which is the illustration of suffering as a result of being unable to abandon the main cause, tanha, that is craving or greed. Our Lord Buddha Gautama, in one of his past existences, was well known as King Bhojana Sotika. His name suggested that he was a luxurious eater. He announced the public to witness his ceremonious feast, which he took in a specially constructed dining hall in the palace courtyard with pomp and grandeur. It was said that he spent $100,000 for each feast. People always assembled enthusiastically to witness the scene. One day, a villager among the assembly, oppressed by the strong urge to eat the king's meal, he suddenly raised his hands and shouted, "Aham Tudo, Aham Tudo," meaning, "Here comes the ambassador, here comes the ambassador." When the spectators made way for him, he rushed towards the king's dining table and he greedily devoured the food. The king restrained his guards from arresting or punishing that intruder, whom he just let him finish his job. When the villager had taken his meat, the king asked him, "You just shouted, the ambassador has come. Now, you tell me whose ambassador you are." The villager answered, "Your Majesty, I beg for your pardon," replied the villager, awakened to his senses by pride. He said, "Tormented by hunger and blinded by the irresistible craving, I was compelled to transgress such a dreadful act, for which I most humbly implore for your mercy. All beings veiled by ignorance and driven by craving are hankering after the sense pleasure by day and by night." The king comprehended the truth in the villager's words, and he was very pleased and even awarded him with gifts. In conclusion, may you all meditators also be able to resist the craving or greed by practicing dana or generosity, sila or morality, bhavana or meditation, and eradicate by insight wisdom and noble path knowledge, and finally free from all suffering. If no questions, let me answer the questions I received beforehand and writing. Question was, as I grow older, I like to keep my age as a secret. I don't want to let other strangers to know. Is it the ego that wants to be young forever? The answer is generally yes. It may be the ego, but the main is like today's tomato. The main cause of not wanting to expose one's true age is this craving or dana. The desire to keep the age secret may have arisen from the fear of death, because when one's age is increasing, that means one is growing old, and that we are nearer to death year by year. That is quite a natural instinct for a worldly person. Buddha himself said, Sabe Bhayanti Majjuno. All beings are afraid of death, because as just now I said, the cause of everything, the cause of this fear is due to craving or dana. Understand better, let us study more detail about this word craving or dana. As you all know, you need to, Buddha's teaching is Four Noble Truths. The first one is Dukkha Satya, the noble truth of suffering. Two, the Samudaya Satya, noble truth of the cause of suffering. And three, Nirodha Satya, the noble truth of cessation of suffering. And the four, Magga Satya, or the noble truth of the path leading to cessation of suffering. These are the four noble truths unique to Buddha's teaching. So the second noble truth, Samudaya Satya, the cause of suffering, is this craving, and body we call dana. So here we have to understand that there are three types of craving Buddha has expounded. One is kama dana, Pali word kama dana. Kama dana means craving for sense pleasure. We are sentient beings, we are endowed with 6 sense organs. The eye to see, the ear to hear, the nose to smell, the mouth to taste, the body for tactile sensations, and the mind for mental factors or mental objects. Out of these, the 5 senses, sight, sound, smell, taste, and tactile impressions, are therefore sensual objects, and we crave for the pleasurable or pleasant sensations, and that craving to indulge or to enjoy the pleasurable sensation by these sense organs is what we call kama dana, the craving for sense pleasure. The second type of craving or dana is bhava dana, craving for continued existence that arise from the eternity belief and of a ego or a person, or so-called a life or an existence. So from arising from these wrong view, the desire to preserve the life begins, and we want to perpetuate the life. So that is the second craving or dana, which we call bhava dana, craving for eternal existence, preservation of this existence or life. And that causes the morbid fear in worldly beings, morbid fear for death. So here, this craving for continued existence can arise as a question such as, is it ego? Ego means personality belief, or attavada, or sakaya deity, atta deity or sakaya deity. Atta means self or ego. Sakaya means sakaya deity. We have many times in our talks explained already. So-called a being, especially we human beings, we are made up of two categories. This physical body, and depending on that, that is mental energy, or the mind, cognitive faculty. So these two are compounded together as psychophysical complex. And if you elaborate it, I many times explain, Rupa is material phenomena, one aggregate, one group of elements grouped together to form this physical body. So this aggregate of Rupa or physical body or material phenomena, material aggregate. Then the Nama can be distinguished into four categories. Vedana, feeling or sensation aggregate. Sanya or perception aggregate, then Sankhara or volition aggregate, and Vijnana or consciousness aggregate. So concisely or briefly, so-called a being or a person is just made up of mind and the matter, Nama and Rupa and Body. If you want to elaborate it, and it is five aggregates. Aggregates means group of these elements, whether physical or mental elements, grouped together, compounded together to form a being. So in ultimate reality, what is truly present or vividly present is these either two, Nama and Rupa, or five aggregates. But we take that as an individual, as a being, as a person, or as ego. And here comes in the craving or the grasping or the clinging to the psychophysical complex as I or mine and somebody or a person. And that it is the term used by Buddha as atta. Atta means I or self. And sakaya deity means, what is sakaya deity means? What is evident, what is clearly evident and ultimate reality is these five aggregates. But we created a person there, and we wrongly understood or viewed these five aggregates as a person or a being or an individual, and that becomes sakaya deity. So in this practicing vipassana bhavana or insight meditation, our meditators must be able to identify these Rupa and Nama, Metta and the mind, or five aggregates, to dissolve or to abandon this sakaya deity or atta deity, to the belief or the misunderstanding or wrong view of this sakaya deity and atta deity. That's why we need to meditate on this Rupa and Nama to distinguish between mind and the metta and the five aggregates. That too we have many times explain to you how to verify in your practical meditation. In sitting meditation, you are asked to observe rising, falling of the abdomen, or sitting, touching, sitting, body sitting, and buttock touching the floor, sitting, touching. So rising, falling is the element of motion due to our in-breath and out-breath. The abdomen is moving up and down, like when you blow air into a balloon. The balloon gets distended. When you squeeze out air, it collapses. So also our abdomen distends with in-breath, and when we breathe out, it collapses. And that you follow with mindful noting as rising and falling. So this rising and falling is element of motion. Element of motion is Vaya or Dhatu, or wind element. It is material phenomena or physical phenomena. And the mind that is noting as rising, falling is a different thing. The rising, falling doesn't know itself, because being metta, and by the mnemonics I have often quoted is, what is metta? It is never mind. What is mind? It is no matter. Because mind is not matter, matter is not mind. Because mind has the cognitive power. It can experience object, or it can experience sensation. The rupa is just material phenomena without any ability to experience a sense. So these are the two different things. So by constantly watching rising, falling, so also sitting, touching. Sitting means you are observing the body sitting stiff and erect and straight. So that body is material phenomena, and the mind that is noting is mental phenomena. So mind and metta in every noting. So the distinguishing knowledge between these mind and metta is the first and basic insight one should acquire. We call nama rupa pariccheda jnana, the distinguishing or analytical knowledge between mind and metta. So also in walking meditation, when you are noting the steps, taking out the steps either left and right, or lifting, putting down, lifting, moving, putting down. This is rupa, or material phenomena. The mind noting as left step, right step, or lifting, putting down, lifting, moving, putting down is nama, mind and metta. So in Dhammanupassana, when you are noting hearing, smelling, seeing, tasting, touching. Now you are hearing my voice. The voice and the ear is rupa, is a physical or material phenomena. The hearing consciousness, or in the body like we just say simply hearing, actually hearing consciousness. Hearing is by mind. So this is nama. So the sound in the ear is the rupa. The hearing consciousness is nama. So also when you note, or when you see something and we are noting seeing, the sight or object of seeing and the eye is rupa. The seeing consciousness that arises, nama, mind and metta. So similarly the nose and the taste, the nose and the smell is the rupa, smelling consciousness, nama, tongue and the taste is rupa, and the tasting consciousness is nama, and the body and tactile object is rupa, and the body consciousness we call touching consciousness is nama. So everywhere we can identify in your meditation practice nama and rupa. So this is the ultimate reality. Actually, there's no person, no I, no mind. What is an ultimate reality truly present is this mind and metta, or nama and rupa. And that is the nama rupa pariccheda jnana. And this inside must be very firmly and undelectably embraced with true compassion. Then only the progress is very smooth. So how about five aggregates? How to identify that? Too, I have many times explained. How to identify the five aggregates in your practical meditation. In steady meditation, when you are noting rising, falling. Rising, falling is rupa. So it is rupakkhana, aggregate of physical aggregate or material aggregate, that is. And feeling of, if you can experience the sensation, rising means distension of the abdomen. You feel distendedness or stretching sensation of the abdomen. And falling means relaxation of the abdomen. So that is Vedana or feeling or sensation is Vedana-khana. It's a feeling or sensation group. Aggregate means a group. Because we are compounded, that's why everything put a term as sankhara. Sankhara means a condition, phenomena, a group of conditions, a group of elements compounded together. So a feeling or sensation is the aggregate of Vedana-khana, Vedana. Then noting as rising and falling or sitting, touching is Sanya-khana. And the effort or being of the attention, you putting forth effort to make a mental note, that is Sankhara-khana. And awareness of rising, falling is Vijnana-khana. That's how you can identify the five aggregates. So also in walking meditation say, the body that is walking or taking the step, the foot or the legs, the limbs that is taking movement is rupakkhana, is aggregate of material phenomena. And the sensation that arises, heaviness, lightness, heat or cool, the sensation one is experiencing is Vedana-khana. And the mind that is knowing as right step, left step, or lifting, putting down, lifting, moving, putting down, is Sanya-khana. And the effort or the intention to walk is Sankhara-khana. And the awareness of walking is Vijnana-khana. So also in noting the sense objects like seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. When you are noting seeing, the object you have seen in the eye, your eye is rupa, it's a rupakkhana. So in your sight, rupakkhana, aggregate of matter. Then the moment you see, we experience sensations either pleasant or unpleasant, or neither pleasant nor unpleasant. And these are Vedana-khana. And the noting as seen or some object as you understand, that is Sanya-khana. And the Manasikara and Pali word meaning focus of attention or making the mind to see or inclining the mind to the object, that is Sankhara-khana. And seeing consciousness that arises, consciousness is Vijnana-khana. Similarly, in hearing, smelling, tasting, you can identify these five aggregates. So in ultimate reality, these elements, either mind and matter, and the relationship of causal relationships, they are taking place. There's actually no individual or no person or no ego involved in it. The next, you have to identify the causal relationships, cause and effect relationships. Before you sit down, that if you watch your mind closely and open up your heart to understand or to see, the desire to sit down will arise in the mind. And you know, and then to sit, and then to sit, and you sit down. Now, because the mind intends to sit, the body sits down. The body itself cannot sit. Like these, they are just only material things, no mental energy then. So they cannot move forward unless somebody could push or pull. We are made up of psychophysical complex, mind and matter, nama and rupa. This physical body is just a physical base for the mind to act. Buddha said, Mano Bhopangama Dhamma. The mind is the forerunner of all phenomena in this world. Because mind intends to sit, the body to sit. So you can, by watching the mind, the intention will arise, and if you make a mental note, intending to sit, and then to sit and sit down. So also after sitting, when you want to change to walking, don't immediately get up. First watch the mind, and the mind intending to get up will arise, or then intending to get up, then it will cause the chain reaction of opening the eyes, supporting yourself, getting up, and you prepare to walk. So also before walking, intending to walk, if you catch the intention and walk, or because the mind intends to walk, the body starts walking. The body is like a puppet doll in olden days. Now modern example is like a robot, somebody playing with a switch, then only the robot is working like that. So this physical body is as commanded by the mind, it has to play that role. So we can easily discern these mechanisms, and that can lead one to arising of the second insight, Pacchaya Parikaha Jnana, the distinguishing knowledge between cause and effect. So also in Dhammanupassana Satipatthana, when you are noting the senses, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, for seeing consciousness to arise, there must be cause or conditions. Like there must be object to see, we call visual object, Rupa, Ramana and Pali, meaning visual object. And then your eye must be functioning. Actually not the whole eyeball. In Pali we call it Chakkhupasada, the eye sensitivity, the sensitive area at the back of the eyeball. And medical term we call retina. Never mind. The eye sensitivity. And these are rupa. And we need light. Aloka. Then manasikara, the mind focusing towards the object. Then only seeing consciousness arise. So the eye and the visual object is the cause. If you want to add light, then the seeing consciousness that arises is the result. So also when you note hearing, the sound and your ear sensitivity, this is the cause. And the hearing consciousness that arises is the result. Cause and effect relationship. Because of a group or conditioning, then another condition can arise. And that is why it is called sankhara, conditioned phenomena. So for hearing consciousness to arise, there must be sound, and ear sensitivity must be functioning well. And akasa, there must be a space. If there is a barrier, right now, what we are talking, if a person is inside, he cannot hear because there's a hard, thick barrier. So there must be a space for the sound waves to travel. So akasa. So these are the cause, hearing consciousness that arises the result. So when you are noting smelling, the smell, the scent or the smell and the nose sensitivity is the cause. Smelling consciousness that arises the result. So when you are eating, to noting, tasting. The taste, meaning the essence of the food, and your jihva pasada, the tongue sensitivity, must be functioning well, and when they two come into contact, and there must be apo, water element to dissolve to extract the essence, then only tasting consciousness can arise. So also there must be tactile object, your body sensitivity must be functioning well, and these are the cause, the kaya vijnana, body consciousness that arises the result, like that. There are cause and the vital relationships. So if one clearly perceives and firmly impressed with confidence, then that is the Pajya Parikaha Jnana, the discriminating knowledge between cause and the vital relationship. Then the next Dhamma or phenomena our meditators must realize is any phenomena has three phases that I have explained many times. And today's Dhamma talk we have mentioned three phases: Upada, arising; Thiti, static movement; and Bhanga, the solution phase. So any phenomena has three phases. That, like now in sitting meditation, when you are observing rising, falling of the abdomen. For the abdomen to arise, if you can watch carefully, it must start, or there must be a beginning to rise. And that beginning, like a major one, and if you have seen sports personally or on television or videos, the athletes taking ready at the starting line, and when the referee fires a pistol shot or whistle, they begin to run. And that's the beginning. Then actual running is the middle or static phase.